Hi, I'm David Maneri. Thanks for watching this video. We're here at the Cambridge Galt Cenotaph. Cambridge has 3 cenotaphs, but we're going to focus on the one in Galt today. It's a cenotaph that was unveiled in November of 1930, and it draws me back time and again for various reasons. One of which is that my great uncle is inscribed, his name is inscribed on the cenotaph. He died in 1916 at the Battle of the Somme and left 2 young children that he really never got a chance to know, and they grew up without him. So I knew them when I was young and didn't give it too much thought until later about the sacrifice that he made and that their whole family made, really. I've written a few stories about this cenotaph, and one of the stories, and the one that we're looking at today, centers around a photograph that was taken in the fall of 1911 at Galt Collegiate. It was a photograph of a football team. There are a couple guys in that photograph that are related to this cenotaph in one way or another, and this story draws that connection between them and the cenotaph. The story of Galt's War Memorial begins for me not in 1930 when the memorial was unveiled, but rather on an autumn afternoon in 1911. That's when a picture was taken of the GCI football team. We know it's 1911 because a young player by the name of Hubert Evans is holding a football with the number 11 painted on it to signify the year. Evans, who eventually became a famous Canadian writer, one whom Margaret Lawrence called the elder of our tribe, would go on within a few brief years after that photo to fight overseas in the Great War, where he was wounded. But another player in that same photograph, Harry McKendrick, speaks not only of the group of young boys on that fall afternoon in front of their high school, but of the war memorial that would be unveiled in front of 10,000 people 19 years later. Young McKendrick's father was Dr. Harry McKendrick, an exceptional athlete in his own right, and one of Galt's most respected leaders. The elder McKendrick had been a world champion canoeist. He'd won that title in 1890 at Long Island. He'd also jumped into the flooding Grand River to rescue a small drowning boy when 3 other men had tried and failed. And McKendrick was responsible for getting the bells at Central Presbyterian Church, chimes that have played various tunes every Sunday for more than a century. War would come to everyone in that photograph. Who knew on that fall day in 1911, when young Harry and Hubert and their teammates gathered after practice for the photo, what was on the horizon? No one could have foreseen that both Hubert and Harry would be fighting overseas and that both would be wounded in battle. Young Harry had the good fortune to have his father, who'd enlisted as a surgeon, nearby when he was injured. Dr. McKendrick operated on his only son and saved his life. And Dr. McKendrick himself would suffer severe wounds during the war, and as a result walked with a limp for the rest of his life. A dozen years after the war ended, both father and son were at the dedication of the cenotaph on Queen Square. Dr. McKendrick was, in fact, chairman of the War Memorial Committee. And his son Harry Jr., remained in the Army after the war with the Queen's Own Rifles, where he carved out a distinguished career. In 1944, he was awarded the Order of the British Empire, and in 1962, he was appointed Honorary Lieutenant Colonel by Queen Elizabeth II. This is just one photograph, one story connected to the cenotaph. There are many others. In the late 1990s, for instance, I drove to the War Memorial with a man who had fought alongside Hubert Evans and Harry McKendrick in the Great War, a man by the name of Fred Sabatine. By then, there were very few other veterans of the Great War still living. He'd sailed overseas and into battle with another person I'd heard a lot about but never got the opportunity to know, a man by the name of William Maneri, my great uncle. Fred Sabatine had been all of 15 when he enlisted, though he lied about his age to get in. He soon regretted that decision. He, like Evans and McKendrick, was injured during battle, but unlike William Maneri, who died at the Battle of the Somme, he survived. So, when I think of the cenotaph, I think of that photograph of the GCI team from 1911, innocence before the coming storm of war. I think too of Fred Sabatine, who lived to be more than 100, outliving several wives and making national news when he remarried for the final time to a much younger woman of 89. I think of all these men, and of others like Ed Heather's father, who never returned from the war, and, like William Mineri, is buried overseas and never saw his young children again. You can't help but feel the solemnity, the sacrifice, sadness, and the sorrow, but somehow there's also hope for peace in these remembrances, and an appreciation that cannot begin to do justice to those men and women who gave their lives. The woman who sculpted the monument, Toronto's Frances Loring, never went to war, but she fought for equal footing all her life in a male-dominated profession. That her war memorial ever saw the light of day is itself a victory of another sort, one made possible by Dr. McKendrick and the committee he chaired when they chose Loring's design over all the others submitted by men. Dr. McKendrick, like his son, is long gone. He died just before the new hospital was built. That hospital, on the old Preston Highway, Coronation Boulevard, was built on part of his property, where his house, which he called Bromley Cottage, was once situated beside the golf course. He loved golf. Though he's gone, his imprint on the community lives on. Each Sunday, the bells of Central ring out, and the monument he was so instrumental in securing has made its presence known day in and day out, and especially on Remembrance Day for nearly a century. He and his son fought alongside many heroes who never came back, and they wanted to remember and pay tribute to the dead. Another McKendrick, John Noble McKendrick, brother to Dr. McKendrick, was also on hand that day in 1930. As head of the Gore District Insurance Company, he presented the deed for the land where the monument and Garden of Remembrance sit to the city of Galt. At the unveiling on that Thanksgiving Day, November 10th, 1930, when 10,000 people were on hand, including hundreds of veterans, as well as the families of those men who never came back, there was a solemn serenity about the day. There was a quietness that was only broken by hymns and by the mass choirs that sang. Yes, there's much to think about when I see the war memorial at Galt. Thanks for watching this video, and if you like it and you want to see more stories about Cambridge and our history, go to www.happeningcambridge.com or just type in "It Happened in Cambridge" and that'll get you there. All the stories that we've done are listed there under the Story Archive. You also see some photographs and paintings of Cambridge, and some of the books that I've written are also there. Thank you.